Ladies and gentlemen, this just in, U.S. District Judge from Colorado, Charlotte Sweeney, has blocked the Trump administration from using the Alien Enemies Act. Why? Well, because the U.S. is currently not at war with any foreign allies, nations, or or Venezuela or Trinidad. Let's get into this news article by the Colorado Newsletter and break the legal analysis reporting down. The article, ladies and gentlemen, is titled Federal Judge in Denver Issues Injunction Against Trump's Alien Enemies Act Removals. And ladies and gentlemen, the article reads, a federal judge in Denver on Tuesday ruled that the Trump administration's efforts to deport immigrants under the Alien Enemies Act, quote, exceeds the scope, unquote, of the country's, centuries-old wartime law, and granted a preliminary injunction against any such removals of detainees held in Colorado. The 25-page ruling from U.S. District Judge Charlotte Sweeney extends indefinitely a block on Alien Enemies Act removals that she had granted in a temporary restraining order last month. Sweeney also issued an order certifying the case, which was brought by lawyers for the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, on behalf of two Venezuelan nationals detained in Aurora as a class action. The injunction bars President Donald Trump's administration from detaining, transferring, or removing petitioners and members of the certified class under the Act for the District of Colorado, unquote. More than 100 people detained at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Detention Center in Aurora could be affected, ACLU attorneys have estimated. The injunction followed similar orders by a federal judge in New York earlier Tuesday and another in Texas last week. A wave of litigation has followed in the wake of Trump's March 14 invocation of the Alien Enemies Act and subsequent deportations of 137 migrants to El Salvador's so-called terrorism confinement center, or otherwise known as CCOT. Ladies and gentlemen, I added the otherwise known. The article didn't. A maximum security prison criticized by human rights groups for its crowded and abusive conditions. Conditions. Passed in 1798. The Alien Enemies Act has been invoked on only 3 previous occasions and only during war. More recently, during World War II, as the basis for the incarceration of non-citizens of Japanese, German, and Italian descent. The Trump administration seeks to use it to expedite the removals of people it claims are part of a, quote, invasion, unquote, of the United States by the Venezuelan gang Trendy Aragua. About 90% of the deportees sent to CCOT last month had no criminal record, according to Bloomberg. At last, one, Kilmer Armando Abrego Garcia, was removed as a result of an, quote, administrative error, unquote, while advocates, attorneys, and family members for other deportees say that they were falsely identified as gang members because of tattoos honoring family members or their favorite soccer team. Trump has openly floated plans to send American citizens to CCOT next. Well, I have news for Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen. You piece of shit. I have some bad news for you. The law prohibits U.S. citizens, you dumbass, from being deported. They cannot be deported from their own country, you POS. Try it. See what happens. It is an unofficial act. Therefore, it's an unconstitutional act and not a constitutional duty. You idiot. As well as what you're doing to deportees in having El Salvador, and paying them to illegally imprison. That, as well, is not an official act. So if courts wanted to, they could have you arrested. Continuing with the article, ladies and gentlemen. The plaintiffs in the Colorado case, who are identified in court documents by their initials DBU and RMM, say they have been falsely identified as TDA members by the Trump administration and fear imminent deportation to the CCOT facility. Sweeney's injunction reiterates many of her findings from an April 22, temporary restraining order, including a judgment that Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act is likely unlawful because the statute requires, quote, military action, unquote, by a, quote, foreign nation or government, unquote. She again dismissed claims by the Trump administration that the court lacks jurisdiction because the plaintiffs are not currently designated for removal under the Alien Enemies Act. In her court proceedings, Trump's Department of Justice has defended the administration's practice of providing as little as 12 hours notice to detainees to indicate they wish to that they wish to contest their designation as alien enemies. Quote, fundamentally, the court concludes RMM and DBU face a sufficient risk of wrongful and harmful deportation under the Act and Proclamation, and that other class members certainly do as well, unquote, Judge Sweeney wrote. Her ruling also had harsh words for the Trump administration's argument in an April 30 filing in opposition to a preliminary injunction that determining whether the Alien Enemies Act properly invoked, quote, is the president's call alone. The federal courts do not have a role to play, unquote. Quote, this sentence staggers. It is wrong as a matter of law and attempts to read an entire provision out of the Constitution, unquote. Sweeney wrote, referring to the first section of the Constitution's article that establishes the federal judicial branch. Another rightful, legal, constitutional win for democracy as well as the rule of law. That is going to do it for today's legal breaking reporting, ladies and gentlemen. If you did enjoy this legal breaking reporting, please firstly like, comment, share, subscribe, and enjoy. Secondly, if you want to stay up to date on all the things legal breaking reporting wise on the side of politics, please hit the bell icon as well as the all notifications option. The bell icon is located directly below the screen here on the right hand side of the subscribe button. Thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, if you also want to stay up to date on all the things legal breaking reporting wise on the side of politics, please follow me on my social medias that I will have linked down below. I will be posting when I've uploaded brand new legal breaking analysis reportings to the channel on the side of politics. Fourthly, ladies and gentlemen, please stay positive. Please stay safe, even though I know that some of you are having trouble finding ways to stay positive during these unfortunate, illegal, induced darkness times by the Trump administration, Trump regime. And know that justice will prevail on the correct side of the law eventually, despite Donald Trump and his illegal, unconstitutional regime's administration's executive orders, illegal executive orders at that, unconstitutional executive orders, and actions and behaviors. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I will talk to you guys in the next legal breaking reporting.